Welcome to Cinema Shame, where James Patrick and Alan Mott help movie virgins get touched for the very first time. The results are seldom like a prayer, but once you open your heart and get into the groove, it feels like a holiday, no matter how borderline you were when you started. Today we're thrilled to have author and YouTuber Matt Baume express himself about his first time viewing an iconic 90s music documentary. But before we go deeper and deeper and figure out what it feels like for a girl who is an international superstar, let's shed a ray of light on why we're so happy Matt is joining us. For nearly a decade, Matt has served as one of YouTube's best queer pop culture historians, where his work includes deep dives on the making of Cabaret, the life and work of Howard Ashman, the sad fate of All in the Family's Beverly LaSalle, and the Paul Lynde Halloween special. Last year, he published his second book, Hi Honey, I'm Homo, which discusses the often overlooked history of queer representation in American sitcoms. As a journalist, he's been nominated for a GLAAD Award and written for Rolling Stone, Slate, and The Advocate. When he's not working away on another video or writing a book, he also hosts the Sewers of Paris podcast, which examines the entertainment that has shaped the lives of queer people. Thanks for being here, Matt. Are you ready to play some Truth or Dare?
People think that being a star is about being fabulous, being in the spotlight, having your picture taken all the time and having everyone worship and adore you. Being rich, rich, rich. Having it all. And you know what? They're absolutely right. I'm so desperate.
Absolutely. Thanks so much for having me. Ready to go.
I wasn't asked that question. I don't know if I'm ready.
We were born
You just told me to watch it. I didn't know I had an option.
So, Matt, we always start with, because, we talk about films that people haven't seen, with the question, why haven't you seen Madonna, Truth or Dare?
That's a good question. Music has sort of been a blind spot for me in that, for some reason, pop music has always been like hit or miss, especially my teens, which would have been the 90s when this was happening. I think I've always been more interested in culture from a couple decades earlier. And so when it was happening, when Madonna was happening, it wasn't that I wasn't a fan. It wasn't that I didn't like her. It's just that her music wasn't really on my radar. And now that I'm adult, I just kind of missed that era. So I'm doing a lot of catch up, which is actually, a lot of my videos start as me just realizing like, hey, I haven't ever seen this thing. I did one on Cabaret recently and I'd only seen Cabaret for the first time. I think this year. I think I'd only seen Cabaret for the first time this year. Yeah. So a lot of it is me realizing exactly like you do on the show. Oh, I need to brush up on this.
Well, now I wish we had a time machine because Cabaret is one of my favorite movies of all time. Bob Fosse is my favorite filmmaker of all time. So, if we could have gotten you for that, that would have been great.
Yeah.
But actually, I'm actually a huge Madonna fan now. But back in 1990 or 91 when this came out, I was in high school and I was a really pretentious asshole kid who only liked serious music. So I this is actually my first time viewing it too. And it was sort of fascinating coming to it as someone who is currently a fan, but watching it now and going like, oh, wow, I don't like this.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. We got to hold that opinion. You just really kind of sent this.
No, I'm coming out right out of the gates. I have some issues with Truth or Dare.
All right.
Ease into it a little bit, man.
It's exciting. She still has the ability, Madonna, even after all these years, still has the ability to shock and surprise. And I think it's a really, it's a documentary now that having watched it at last, it's got quite a punch to it.
Well, it's one where another reason why I hadn't seen it was I felt like I already had seen it because so many of these scenes were just part of the culture that it felt like you had seen them in various clips all over, that it was like, well, I don't need to see them all put together. Like, I've seen them. And I think that was one thing about it that was sort of like a shock watching it. It's just seeing how they all piece together and how they don't really piece together to form anything. It's really much like a documentary where she wanted to make a documentary, but nobody at any point was like, well, what is it about? It is a vanity project, but also one where at the time, the vanity was justified.
Yeah, I think that's fair. It actually reminded me a bit of, it's interesting that you're a fan of Cabaret. It reminded me a little bit of Liza with a Z.
Yeah.
Obviously, the balance of performance to backstage is very different, but seeing this incredibly powerful, incredibly talented woman essentially doing her own work of myth-making about herself, I found it really fascinating.
Well, the thing that I found fascinating about it is the director, Alec Karkasian. I think that's how it's pronounced. He does this thing where everything we see on stage is in color, and everything we see behind the scenes is in black and white. And I think we're supposed to get like the thing, like, you know, like on stage is the fantasy, and behind the scenes is the reality. But I found that I had the exact opposite reaction, that the only time the movie felt genuine and authentic were during the performance scenes. And everything, like all of the black and white stuff, just felt very staged and deliberate. Like even like sort of the seemingly like off the cuff moments had a hint of like, no, they thought about this, they planned this. None of this is actually happening just because.
What felt genuine to you about the performances? Because obviously those are very tightly scripted and rehearsed, and you know.
Well, just the fact that it was like a choreographed performance that was, you know, like we're basically seeing what was meant to happen on stage. Like there are a couple of shots here and there where you could tell they've inserted stuff for like whatever he had in mind, but just like you're just seeing a real genuine concert performance. And that to me is more real than sort of the, you know, behind the scenes stuff we're supposed to feel is like the real.
Well, it's like the lore of the shows themselves. And I've never seen a Madonna show. So I was most interested in the shots when we had prolonged music concert footage. And that to me felt real because that's what I'd always heard about the show was the greatness of a Madonna live show. So that's what I was drawn to. And I felt the same way about the interstitial bits because you're watching them and you said, what's the point? And I wanted to know what we were trying to get from this. What was Madonna? What does she want to achieve with these scenes? Because it didn't seem like there was an arc to it. It didn't seem like there was much to it other than like the scene with Warren Beatty, where he's like, you just want the cameras on. It doesn't matter what you're doing, you just want them on. And that's kind of how I felt about all of the non-performance scenes.
Well, I think we're really seeing a mix in this doc. You know, I'm reading into it a bit and, you know, kind of trying to meet them halfway. But I think there's a mix of people who are aware of it as a product and people who really are being genuine. Like, I think, you know, for example, our hair and makeup people, I don't think they're trying to sell themselves as a persona. Madonna, you've got on the far end of the extreme, who's, I think, never not thinking about marketing. And then I think the dancers themselves are, you know, to one extent or another, they have a story, you know, like we all do. There's a story that you want people to believe about you. And so I think they are presenting, you know, they all know that they're on camera. I just don't think, you know, they're being as perhaps strategic about it as Madonna just naturally seems to be. She's just got such a skill for it, for knowing that she's being watched. The only two real moments in this doc that I felt like she was letting the guard down a bit was when she was talking to her dad. That actually felt a little bit more genuine to me.
So what's going on?
Your nights were changed.
Well, so who wants to come? And when?
Well, whatever, you know.
I mean, Dad, I'd love it if you'd come to both shows. I don't know. I mean, it's pretty racy in some sections. I don't know if you could take it 2 nights in a row.
Oh, you had to get racy on me.
Dad, I'm not getting racy. I've been racy.
And also when she was talking to Sandra Bernhard, like that felt to me like she was much more at ease than she is around any of the other people in her orbit.
I'm like a drug addict, you know.
Are you still sleeping with her? Are you still? Sandy, I don't like her.
I don't either. Believe me, it's sickening.
I don't like any of the people I sleep with either, so what difference
Well,
does it
that's
make?
why you sleep with them, because they're hideous.
Well, the thing that astounded me when I was just sort of looking up like the dates and stuff like that is that this is actually only 7 years into her like career as a pop superstar, because this is made in 1990 and Madonna, her first album, came out in 1983. And to put that in perspective, we're on the 9th year of Sabrina Carpenter. It's interesting because the Madonna we're watching is fully formed. It is the iconic Madonna, but she is, in terms of her career, essentially a baby.
That's true. What a great example of like the way that I do not keep up with the times. I have no idea who Sabrina Carpenter is. So, but that's how I was with Madonna at the time that this was being made.
She's big with the kids, Matt. The kids love her.
I'm happy for them. That's wild that, she's so fully, and she is like huge. I was watching this and trying to think like who's on her level at this point. Like Janet Jackson, Paula Abdul, who?
No.
Celine in Canada, maybe, but
I tell you, Madonna really was the top at that point. And I think every new album release was an event. I think her equivalent now is Taylor Swift. Like she was the Taylor Swift of that period, especially even how Taylor has her eras. Madonna took that to the nth degree, where each new album was essentially a new Madonna. And I think with this Blonde Ambition tour, we're getting probably what was probably the most successful Madonna archetype that we were ever going to get.
She really does seem like she's fostering the parasocial relationship before, decades before we're really talking about that as a phenomenon. But she is so aware, there's at one point where she's talking on the phone, she slams the phone down, she is aware that she's being perhaps a little bratty, and she gives this big smile and mug to the camera. Isn't this fun? Isn't this all part of the fun? And it really does feel like she is attempting to foster a very close relationship with her audience. I mean, of course, who else is going to... Everybody wants to see it. Everybody who loves Madonna is going to go see this film, and they're going to come out feeling like she's their best friend, that they were in the bed with her.
Yeah. But I think that's what I found kind of off-putting about it. It felt like I think Warren Beatty's speech is very apt for today.
You want to talk at all off camera? You have nothing to say.
She doesn't want to live off camera, much less talk.
I think that's what it is.
There's nothing to say off camera. Why would you say something if it's off camera?
And tomorrow, you're going to be
What point is there of existing?
He's essentially talking about someone who was behaving like an influencer 30 years before influencing was even a thing. And I think that sort of the movie never takes us away from that feeling. The whole time it's we're being invited to look into Madonna's life, but it's so curated in a way that it's just I'm giving you the glimpse of what you want to see, and the whole time we're we actually want to see the moments with your dad and stuff like that. That's those, we want to see if there's an actual person behind the image.
I was gonna say, it's hard for me because we're looking back on it. I mean, this is 34 years now, and we have this document of Madonna in 1990. I don't know how I would have felt about it in 1990. Watching it now, I was well, this is exactly what I thought it would be, or how I thought she would be, and the documentary itself doesn't do anything to expand my expectation for Madonna. The image is curated. I feel like she was emotionally manipulating just about everyone that came into her orbit, and she knew that they'd just take it. She knew that they'd accept it because she's Madonna, and this is my universe. This is my world, and I can control how everyone acts in my world. And I never felt that Madonna, quote unquote Madonna in the movie, gave me something that I didn't already know or didn't already expect. I think that's my fracture with this movie, is that it was exactly what I expected and nothing more.
Well, I think it speaks to the time when it was made, that she's constantly talking about how she's the mom and she's everyone's mother, and they want to make that connection between her and her losing her mom when she was younger. But the whole time you're not their mom, you're their boss, and that's okay. This tour would not be happening without you. These people are making a good living because of you. It is okay to actually just be the head bitch in charge and make these decisions, and not have everyone sort of treat you like your best buddy. And I think that's something that plays differently today than at the time. People would have been more she's so close with her dancers. It's sort of well, no, she shouldn't be. I think we have now the perspective perspective, like that's actually kind of an inappropriate, like a lot of the stuff she does with her dancers would get her canceled if she did them today.
I think that's the most interesting thing to me about the film. Like I'm ragging on Madonna somewhat here, but I was most interested in the movie when Madonna was off screen and they were talking about her, because I always felt, we're talking about real moments and what we felt were authentic. Those always felt authentic to me because they were never overly negative about her. It was a far more complicated relationship, and those conversations I had when she wasn't on screen were far more telling and far more interesting. I loved all the stuff with the dancers. Like, that was something I didn't expect, and the conversations about Madonna were far more interesting than Madonna herself in many ways.
I have a lot of sympathy for her being the essentially, having the part of her persona be like the bitch who's in charge of everything and like projecting that. When I think about the women whose footsteps she's following in and how buffeted they were by the industry, I'm thinking of like Judy Garland and Marilyn Monroe, who she owes a lot to, and even Jean Harlow. There's a moment in here where I was like, God, she looks exactly like Jean Harlow with this like very classic 1930s sort of styling.
Well, there's also a moment where she just totally calls out Lucille Ball.
Oh, sure, yeah. I mean, what a great like role model there. Like, it was so difficult, even into the 90s, which we is not really that long ago, but it is. But still, a time when for a woman to be in charge of her career in showbiz was so difficult and precarious. Like, terrible things happened to women who were trying to be as powerful as she was. And, I understand like how unflinching she is. There's some point where she's talking to one of the dancers. I forget which one it is. And she's being a little rough with, she's, telling him like, stop giving him shit or, you basically giving him a little warning talk. She does not break eye contact. She doesn't look away. She's never, I think women are often socialized, especially back then, to be deferential to men, and you cannot accuse Madonna of being deferential to men.
No.
She owns the room, and she's bored by men, which I think angered a lot of guys around her.
Yeah.
So anyway, I'm impressed by her, and that she is not. I don't think you can say that she is a victim like a lot of other people in her position could have been made into.
No, I think that's sort of the reason why Madonna is such an interesting figure is because her legacy is one of someone who actually had full control of her career. So she gets the credit for all of her successes and the blame for all of her fuck ups.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is like not true for a lot of celebrities in her. And I think that speaks to how powerful she actually was at the time, is that she's probably one of the few like stars of that era who can truly make that claim.
Yeah. I'd compare her a bit to George Michael when he got arrested for cruising in the bathroom. Yeah. There are some things like bad behavior by rock stars we can tolerate in so many ways, but not, there's a line. And, being gay at that time was a line that people were like, we can't excuse this. And Madonna just being like a woman in power who owned her sexuality, I think a lot of people were like, well, this is inappropriate. A woman being this comfortable in her body, we can't have this.
I kept flashing back on my memory of our local newspaper reviewer who reviewed the movie. And his only note was sort of like how self-destructive it was for her to do the bottle fellatio, because like she's a professional singer, she could like wreck her vocal cords. Like, I thought it was like that. I think to me that was sort of the reaction to the movie at the time. It was very like tut, like, who is this young lady to be behaving this way?
I mean, that didn't even register with me. Like, thinking about that, it was just
sure.
Another scene now. So it does speak to where we are now versus 1990. That was called out as something scandalous.
Show us with that bottle how you give head.
Stand up and come down on it.
Oh, what? You're not asking the question, motherfucker.
You're
not performing either.
I just see. Oh my God!
It does seem like, she was certainly cultivating that sort of vibe. As little as I know about her, I was certainly aware of when, the book, literally the book is called Sex. And what a delight it must have been to everyone involved, especially her, when they're, it was getting banned by libraries and that kind of thing. Like, this is exactly, having the opportunity to fillet the bottle is, I think, one of the reasons that she made this documentary in the first place.
I'm waiting.
You told me you're sort of working on a video now, and that's sort of why you wanted to do this. Was like have you started it? Like, was there any sort of like thing watching the movie where you were sort of like, oh, like that makes sense now that I've done this sort of research?
Yeah, well, I'm always researching and looking for stuff to talk about. I've been doing a lot like in the 90s recently. I did a video about Howard Ashman and the Disney Renaissance, working on, just finished one about My So-Called Life, and working on another about, well, by the time that this episode comes out, it'll be out, about Tales of the City on PBS. And looking at American Family, which was a documentary on PBS, and also The Real World on MTV. Anyway, so I'm always doing research, and there's a lot to unpack, I think, in this documentary when it comes to the sexuality of the dancers and how openly queer they were and how approving Madonna is and accepting she is, talking to Sandra Bernhard about, Sandra Bernhard sleeping with women. And then also, knowing what was going on behind the scenes, because after I watched Truth or Dare, I went and watched a documentary that came out about 10 years ago that followed up on Where the Dancers Are in 2016. And, the secrets that they were carrying and the closets they were in and the stigma that they had about being HIV positive. I'm still sort of processing just what a difficult experience that must have been. And also what it says about where, the American attitudes about, there's two men kissing in this documentary and how harmful they felt that it was to their reputation for people to see that when it came out.
Yeah, I found like I kind of was of two minds with the dancer sequences, because on the one hand, I found them legitimately fascinating, but at the same time, I was like, I don't know why they're in this movie specifically. Like, because the movie never feels like it's about behind the scenes of the Blonde Ambition tour. It's about Madonna. So whenever we go to like one of the dancer vignettes, it's like, well, this is not Madonna, and this is a movie about Madonna. And so, like, especially, I found, like, the scenes with Ollie to be, like, kind of, like, I'm not sure what we're supposed to be getting from this, like, this guy who appears to be straight, who claims to be straight, and is in a queer reading profession, working with a bunch of queer men, and seems to be overtly homophobic and gets upset whenever they do anything vaguely gay around him. And to me, that was like fascinating and would have made a great movie, but it always felt like disruptive in this movie. It's like, I don't know what this is saying right now here.
I think if this was made today, if this kind of film was made today, first of all, it wouldn't, because we don't have superstars in the same way that we did. But I think they would have been perhaps a little bit more deliberate with their casting of the dancers. It sounded like Madonna really cast who she thought would be great for the tour. And that's great. Of course, you would do that. But I think if this was being made today, it would be much more like a real world casting call, or, a reality show kind of thing, where you cast people who have big personalities. And in particular, I think the job of the dancers in this documentary is, and I don't know if they were aware of this at the time, I think what they're doing there, and I think the reason that it cuts to them every now and then, is to tell the audience, basically, this could be you. You could be friends with Madonna. She could be your mom. Think of Madonna as your fun mom. And I think that's what the dancers are there. They're sort of a surrogate for the audience, the fans, who want to feel like they're close to Madonna. Well, they can feel close to Madonna through these regular folks who she is welcomed into her inner sanctum.
Well, I think you get a really good glimpse of that. Like, actually, probably if I had to pick my favorite moment in the movie, it's when she's reading the poem that someone has written for her assistant. I don't know if she actually wrote it or like who it came, but she's the one who reads it. And it really does feel like the affection seems genuine. It's not a thing of like, oh, I'm a boss and I'm just doing something, nice for my employee. It genuinely feels like this is my friend and they genuinely mean something to me and they really make my life different.
Way back in the beginning, when I started all of my sinning, I needed a partner in crime, you could say. So I went on a search and I started to pray. I walked into my manager's office one morning. I was mouthing out loud in my usual form. As my eyes toured the room, my poor heart skipped a beat, for there in the corner was the picture of Sweet.
I think that's part of the frustration of the movies. We get these glimpses, and then we get to these things where they're all on a bed, just flirting with each other, and it's not fun or cute. It's more self-indulgent than anything else.
Yeah, it's true. Like, I do think when they're on the bed and she's getting them to yell, she's like, do we care what Hollywood thinks of us? No. Do we care do we want Hollywood's approval? No. Like, that feels, I think that's the moment where, to me, the documentary feels like it's trying a little too hard, where like she's making the subtext text and it's like, okay, we get it. You're different. You're not like the others. Okay. But I think you're right that there are moments like that birthday party or whatever it was, the celebration for the assistant, where, they actually, seem to have interpersonal relationships that are not just performances for the camera.
Yeah, I think that poem was something I'd marked down too, and it's funny. I noted that when I thought we got the best glimpse into Madonna when she was reading something, when she was reading that poem, when she was just going over lyrics with the dancers of the songs, like when she made fun of their Belinda Carlisle bit. Like, there are these moments where I'm like, this is a really fun insider moment that does bring out more of Madonna. I just wish I didn't have scenes like lying down at the graveside, which just doesn't fit because you've shoehorned
cringe. It was
yes,
cringe.
The kids would say cringe. That was the moment that I wish I liked this more. I wish this stuff didn't happen. And it wasn't just the grave scene, but there were the moments like that where we're trying to shoehorn meaning into Madonna that doesn't need to be there. She literally could have just been Madonna on camera, and that's all we needed. But it seems like we didn't trust that as a documentary form, and we needed to artificially increase the melodrama to make Madonna more than she was. And I don't think that was necessary.
What I remember most about my mother was that she was very kind and very gentle and very feminine. I mean, I don't know. I guess she just seemed like an angel to me, but I suppose everybody thinks their mother's an angel when they're 5. I also know she was really religious. So I never really understood why she was taken away from us. It just seemed so unfair. I never thought that she had done something wrong, so oftentimes I'd wonder what I'd done wrong.
There's a template of what this movie should have been, and that's D.A. Pennebaker's Don't Look Back, which is a documentary about Bob Dylan, which is very much, it's basically Pennebaker just had the camera, he followed Dylan around, and he caught what he caught. And it's one of the most fascinating films of all time, one of the great docs, because it really is capturing this superstar at just this very specific moment in his career of his ascendancy. And it doesn't need bells and whistles. It doesn't need cute little setups and stuff like that. Just the moment itself is enough. And like here, it's like they the director or Madonna or whoever just didn't actually trust that there was going to be a good movie just purely shooting the behind the scenes stuff. So they have to gild everything. Even and they overplay some stuff, like the when they're threatened with her being arrested in Toronto. Like, they could have just played the regular drama, but they have to just take it to a level where at a certain point it feels like, well, did they hire these cops? I know they didn't, because it was in Canada, it was a major story at the time, and you can still find stuff about it.
Take God and everything. I'll be praying that I don't get arrested. Where else am I nasty?
Everywhere.
Oh.
I mean,
day one.
That's the
When
thing
you
is,
walk
we're
out-
going to realize tonight how many places that we
Say
do
hello
things.
to Ronjo. Do you believe in freedom? I got something to say,
Rubber.
okay?
Yeah.
Come on.
That's it, then.
Well, I think, it comes down to what the purpose of the documentary is. Like, when you look at a They Caught What They Caught style documentary, and comparing it to reality TV of today to early reality TV, like An American Family, which was this, recognized as one of the first reality shows. It was on PBS, and it was They Caught
The Loud Family.
Yeah, The Loud Family. Yeah. Just let's put the cameras down and see what happens. And it's like watching security footage, and often it's very boring, but as an experiment in what the medium can do, it's fascinating. The fact of its existence is more interesting than actually watching it. Then you get to the real world in the early 90s, which, basically its purpose is to exist as the cheapest possible soap opera that MTV can get on the air. And then, similarly with this documentary, with Truth or Dare, I think it doesn't exist to be a document of how a concert tour happens. I don't think it's there to document like the ins and outs of how to put on a show. I think it exists as part of the Madonna myth package. And, I don't know what concert films look like today, but I imagine they're even slicker and more written and intentional. And,
Well, I think it says a lot that the most successful one of all time, which just came out last year, doesn't have any behind the scenes footage at all. That's Taylor Swift's Eras tour. It's only stage. It's only what happens. But then that's a 3-hour show, so that makes sense. But yeah, no, I talking about it, like I kept thinking of above reality TV too. But the difference is that they're like with reality TV, they're taking something that is just happening and afterwards like try to figure out like, okay, how can we twist this into like a typical 3-act structure?
Well, that's what it was.
And it feels like,
not anymore. Now reality television is written and there's producers on set feeding people lines. But you're right. There was a time when, reality TV was,
but it's still based on the traditional 3-act structure. Like how, like even like a competition show, like Hell's Kitchen, they're still doing like it's a regular drama in terms of the way it's paced. Whereas in this case, like they give it that zhuzh that is like used for reality TV, but when they're editing it, they don't have any actual end goal or plan or any structure. So it's all of these like reality TV show moments, but it's not going anywhere or leading to anything specific.
Sure. Yeah, I think that's exactly it. And like I was saying, like if it was made today, I think it would be very different. But at the time, I bet this was exactly, the document that they wanted to make. People audiences didn't know. Audiences weren't expecting something like a really crafted documentary. Let me rephrase that. Weren't expecting something like a really crafted reality show like we would expect today.
Yeah.
Obviously, there are plenty of documentaries at the time that tell a story beginning to end. But I don't think, if you looked at the list of priorities that Madonna had going into this, I bet a Joseph Campbell hero's journey was not that. I don't think that was the plan.
What do we think Madonna actually wanted to accomplish with this?
I think she wanted people to think of her as mom. Like, I think that was it. So much of this documentary is about parents, her parents and her being a surrogate mother and the dancers' relationship with their parents. And I think that is, first and foremost.
She doesn't want to be a godmother, though. She established that.
Yeah, isn't that interesting?
No, that was out. What does that entail?
Any of my letters, and I asked you if you would be Mario's godmother.
Yes,
Okay.
I remember that.
Did you read the letter?
I got it a long time after the fact.
Well, very unexpectedly. Real unexpectedly.
Yeah.
I'm pregnant again.
Oh, really? Oh my God. Please. Okay.
Okay. I want you to be the baby's godmother.
Really?
I really do.
You're coming to the show tonight, right? And Melissa has all your phone numbers. I know this is too rushed of a situation. I'm really flattered that you're asking me, but I have to think about it.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fascinating that, but also, people must come up to her with requests all the time and, she's got to be careful because she says yes to one thing, then who knows?
Well, she says she's literally hadn't seen this woman in 10 years and the woman is asking her to be like the godmother of her child. Like I'm sorry, that's crazy, lady. Like, yeah, I actually had to fast forward past that scene. It was too uncomfortable.
It is. Yeah, it is uncomfortable. And I don't think that was part of the script that Madonna really wanted was like being in a position where she can't take on that mothering role. Like, the quote unquote mothering that she does to those dancers, I think is actually kind of codependent and not great, but
yeah.
But that's the kind of relationship she wants people to feel like they can have with her from a distance as fans with the character of Madonna.
Thank you.
You look great. Thanks for having us. That was really generous.
Sure. Thanks for coming.
We thought it was neat.
Neat?
Yeah, really neat. Yeah.
No one's ever described it quite that way.
I want to talk about Kevin Costner.
Sure.
It's funny because when that scene came on, I decided I was going to note every celebrity who appeared. And I made a note of Kevin Costner and Kevin Costner's mullet because I felt like that was its own celebrity at that event.
I got a real jump scare in there.
We're thinking this is like Is this Robin Hood time? Like, was that Robin Hood hair? Because
yes, that's 100% his Robin Hood hair. Yeah,
that's not even the Robin Hood hair. That's like we had to trim it a little bit to.
Well, he had to grow it out.
It's so funny.
Yeah, that was sculpted
what a
that
mismatch. He and she are, when he comes backstage, and she so objects to him calling it neat. I do love that moment that she's like, absolutely, I do not want to have anyone around me who talks like that.
Yeah.
Again, being kind of a brat, but like that's the character, right?
Fun tonight. I don't think we'll be making that other deal.
Oh, really? Not neat enough for you?
Nah, well, not quite. No, we got to put the kids. We got to get with the kids.
Okay.
I'm gonna give them this.
All right. Thanks.
God bless.
Yeah, no, there are moments where I really found her charming in this. Like, I think that's like that's the key, is that she is Madonna for a reason. Like, if she was like excruciating and just impossible to, deal with, like, she would not have had the career that she had. Like, but I always found like it's interesting because we did our Shame Downs for a while ago. I can't remember what year it was. I think it was 2002, but my favorite one that I watched was Swept Away, which was an infamous flop, and everyone talked about how it's one of the worst movies of all time. And I actually thought it was really interesting, and as a remake, it actually did some really cool stuff. But the thing that struck me the most about it is that I get the sense that Madonna would have been the greatest silent actress of all time.
Oh, interesting.
Because like her presence is such, like that's why she was so successful at the time, is because her music videos always stood out from everyone else's just because of her mere presence. But she just has such like charisma on camera. But then when she tries to play someone who isn't herself, there's this uncanny valley thing starts happening, and you're like, well, why would you want to be anyone else? You're fucking Madonna.
I agree. She is so captivating. And watching her on stage, I was watching with my partner and observed like just how well she owns the stage. There are these giant, vast stages. And sometimes she's the only one out there, or it's her and the two backup singers. And like, you cannot take your eyes off her. She's a magnet for your attention.
I can attest to this personally because I saw her Rebel Heart tour live, and there was a moment, like the moment I'll never forget, and it is just like, it's literally her alone on stage in like a Canadian tuxedo, like skin tight jeans and a denim jacket, and she's doing like a version. I think she was doing it a cappella. I don't even think there was music behind her. And I swear to God, it was the sexiest fucking thing I've ever seen in my entire life. And she's literally like a tiny dot, like basically a mile away, because I had really cheap tickets. But it's still like that far away. I was still hit by the palpable, like it's the confidence. Like she has more confidence than any other person alive.
Yeah. It's just, she's so, I agree, so compelling. And it's really interesting how you say like she would have been like a huge star in silent films. I think that's probably true. She's very expressive, and I was comparing her to Jean Harlow just, earlier.
Yeah.
She photographs great in black and white. So
yeah.
But I think that's true. Like, you know what it is for me? I think she's got a lot in close up. She's got a lot going on with her eyes. She's great with her eyes. Obviously, that's not the whole ticket. But, when it comes to her focus and her attention, she is so great. Even in the music videos, she's so great at like something about those eyes really draw me in.
She understood the assignment and just had this high sense of drama. So even if it's like a silly, like little music video, she still gave it sort of that like diva edge. Like she almost reminds me more like sort of the classic, like sort of like of the Betty Davises and the Joan Crawfords. But because she basically had the Marilyn Monroe face and body, people aren't like sort of associating to, but to me, like she definitely had that sort of like that. She's a broad, like she's an old school broad.
At times, the mannerisms, I almost felt like she was really clinging on to something she borrowed from Betty Boop. Like there's this really cutesy layer over this like sex goddess appeal, and I think maybe that's like the missing link, because she's not just sexy, and it's not just like she has this like charisma to her. It's something that's just different about when she existed and what kind of inspiration she was pulling into her performance. And you're talking about like as a silent actress and the magnetism that she just exudes when she's just there on camera. She knows how to manipulate our gaze, our anticipation. Like, she always leaves us wanting. Even in this documentary, we watch her play with the camera and the director, and scene to scene, it's I'm the attraction. You're all in my orbit, and it's this movie that I'm making, so I'm going to control how the scenes unfold. And I don't even know if that's because she was in a movie. I feel like that's just how she exists. I never got the impression she changed how she behaved for this camera.
And she was, I know she comes from a big family. She was one of 5, is that right?
I think so.
Yeah, and so I imagine, if she's the kind of person who thrives on attention, she had to become very skilled at drawing it to her.
Yeah.
The vibe that I got from her throughout was sort of like CEO baby, like sexy CEO baby, where like sometimes she's like calling the shots, and like when she's like yelling at that audio guy who is absolutely, she's right and he should be fired. Like,
oh yeah,
he's doing a terrible like, what do you mean the microphones just sometimes cut out? Come on. Anyway, but she's being like so on top of everything, like boss girl, doing like the Lucille Ball kind of role. And then she also has to be like this innocent and like, oh, come find me with your eye, come, ravage me and imagine me naked. And, she's doing all the sexy stuff. Like, there's such a blend of things that she has to be to different people. What a difficult job.
Well, possibly there's something going on in the building that we didn't have at sound check.
Well, I want to do something that is going to, like, check everywhere to make sure this doesn't happen again. Because it happened in Where's the Party, and it happened in...
So what you don't understand is that there's no way of checking things. We can do things at sound check.
How come it's not happening to Nikki and Donna?
I have no answer for that. Because if there's something very close to your frequency on...
Well, if you don't find an answer, Keith, you can't... I mean, I'm singing a cappella and my fucking headset goes out. And everybody thinks the fucking show is over with.
Things come into the building.
Well, how come it didn't happen to the girls?
Because they're all on separate frequencies. So there's something...
Well, put me on their fucking frequency and
We're seeing who she had to be in order to become who she really is. So she still has that tendency to do the Betty Boop cutesy stuff, because at the beginning of her career, that's how she, was able to, become Madonna. But now she's reached the point where she is Madonna and she doesn't need to keep on doing it, but she also doesn't know how to turn it off, because it's basically, that was how she survived for a very long time. Yeah,
I wonder, like, she reminds me, it makes me think, this is a bizarre thing to compare it to, of Peter Sellers, who, there's an episode of The Muppet Show where somebody, I think it's Sam the Eagle, somebody says something like, just be yourself. And he says, there is no, the real you. People want the real you. And he says, there is no real me. I had the real me removed. And, I wonder, like, what is the real Madonna?
That wasn't a joke, by the way. That is something he actually told people in real life. Like,
no, that's legit.
People would say, like, we want the real Peter Sellers, and he would say, there is no real Peter Sellers. Like, I'm only myself when I'm playing someone else.
Well, and maybe I'm giving her too much credit here, but I imagine there is a real Madonna and a real private, like, that when the cameras really aren't there and she's with, for example, her kids. Like, there's got to be like a real her. Like, I think, and I really respect this. If this is true, my impression is that she doesn't involve her children, who must be adults now, in publicity, in the machine, and the marketing.
Oh no, they're on her Insta.
Oh, okay. Well, then never mind. But I wonder, like, what does she carve out that's just for her, if anything?
That's what Warren Beatty was so, like, freaked out by, because, like, even at the time, like, as, a 15-year-old who, like, was a movie nerd and knew enough about Warren Beatty, it was sort of like, well, what does he do? Like, why is, like, one of the most private superstars of all time doing with one of the most public superstars of all time, beyond the fact that she's, really fucking hot. Like, and he's Warren Beatty, and, like, he needs another notch on his goalpost, like, on his bedpost.
Well, I think, it's no coincidence that, like, the cornerstone song, one of the cornerstone songs of this tour, is Vogue, that's all about striking a pose and, like, being seen and, like, creating the fantasy, and that it comes out of ballroom. And I think of how much of the emphasis in the documentary Paris is Burning, how much of the emphasis there is about people investigating what it means to be real, like, literally the song To Be Real, and how much of what we're seeing from Madonna is her pushing at the boundaries of what is real, and also knowing that, like, these poor dancers, like, are going through it, like, they're putting on a show for either, pretending that they're straight, pretending that they're HIV negative, whatever, that their lives are going great. And, the reality of it is that, they're in this showbiz machine that some of them are going to get chewed up and spit out pretty harshly.
Okay, wait a second. You guys, does Jose love me more than I love him? It's not possible. No.
You know what it is? You know what it is? To come
I love
after
this
rehearsals to our hotel room, and guess what this child pawns? You made me everything. Get up off the floor.
That's why I had sort of an ambivalence about those scenes, because at the same time that I was happy to get this glimpse, but at the same time I felt like things are clearly being held back. And I think for something like this, you need to, the director needs to be skilled enough to find ways to make these revelations without, without actually trying to draw them out. And I think that's sort of the trick that, I think that's why, a lot of the great documentaries are just a matter of time. You just shoot, 1,000 hours of footage and you make an 80-minute movie out of that.
Yeah, I think a really truly fascinating documentary about Madonna is one that she would never allow to be made.
Oh yeah.
I respect how much control she has over the quality and the product that she makes. But I would love to see more scenes like her reaming out that guy for the audio issue, and just what does it take?
love that moment. Yeah.
What is her actual professional life like, and how is she made Madonna, essentially? How has she made that?
As sort of a show business nerd, I honestly would have loved if it had been purely a documentary about the, Blonde Ambition tour, and Madonna was just sort of a side character, and you would have these moments where she's the mom who comes in and justifiably reams out the audio guy for, fucking up, and him offering these excuses, and she just going well, if it works for them, it should work for me. And again, she's right. She's the one who's important. The backup singers, if their mics go out, it doesn't matter as much.
I think the thing that I wanted from maybe not this documentary, because I appreciate this for being what it is, but what I'm so curious about, to go back to Liza with a Z, one of my most one of the things about that documentary about Liza with a Z as a concert film that fascinates me is that they had to work out this really intricate system of cutting between Liza singing live and Liza lip syncing to a recording live on stage, because some of those dances are just too strenuous and she can't sing and dance at the same time. And she goes back and forth between the live version and the recorded version just before your eyes. And that's invisible to the viewer, there in the venue. It's invisible to the viewer of the film. You just have to know that that's something they were doing behind the scenes.
Yeah.
And I wonder the same thing about this tour. There are moments in this tour where I'm like, okay, that's her voice. She's singing live. I can tell. It's scratchy and she's been sick, and I can tell her voice is different. But then there are other times where I'm like, is she really going straight from this incredibly athletic dance right into hitting these hard, long, high notes? And so I'm really curious about just the technical, the making. How do you craft this incredibly difficult piece of art? That's what I want to see. And it's the thing that she has, I assume, absolutely zero interest in putting out there as a product, as part of the stuff that she wants people to see. I don't think she wants to make it.
I'm pretty sure that this tour was where she made the she was one of the first to use the hands-free mic sets. And I think part of that was a deliberate, people can't see when I have the microphone, because one of the reasons why I say that Pink is one of the best live performers I've ever seen is that she's doing that really strenuous Cirque du Soleil stuff, and you can actually the song changes when her mic moves away from her her mouth. It's not a thing where she's doing at a track. You could genuinely tell oh no, she's really singing while she's 60 feet up in the air spinning around in that hoop.
Oh yeah, I want to see a documentary about her aerial training and the safety stuff they have to go through, the costume things. I want to know about the craft of it. And I mean, but also that's me, and I don't think a lot of people want that. I think a lot of people want to feel for example, with Pink, what a great example. I think a lot of people want to feel like she's my cool friend. Yeah. I don't think they want to feel like she's my work colleague.
Well, it's certainly a matter of perspective, too. We're at the point where, we've seen just about everything they can throw at us. But we're interested in the nuts and bolts of how it all comes together. So we're fans of these performers. We've seen the videos. We've seen shows. But the thing that's always eluded us is stuff like that, the behind the scenes of the tour, like what it takes to put on a tour of that magnitude and scale, and talking about the audio systems and the training that it takes. And these are the things that I think we're more interested now as film fans. We want to see this kind of documentary on film, but also as music fans who've been around and seen generations of artists come and go. We want to know how these massive shows, these iconic performances come together, from the choreography standpoint, from just the staging, the how the sets are built. Like, all these things are just wonderful topics for documentary. Now, as you said, that's not what any of these performers want to put out. They don't want to show anything behind the curtain. They want to show the performance. And in this,
well, you don't want to give the magic trick away.
You can't pull the curtain away. But that's what we want. That's the scene we haven't seen. That's what we're craving. And even with this one, I wanted her to finish a song at some point. Like, I just felt like we got clips and images. I'm like, yes, let's take this. Can we go a little bit further here? And that's what I constantly craved and never got, was more of the tour. Now, that was never the goal of the documentary. Apparently,
I'm pretty sure there is I'm pretty sure there is a full
one?
Legal Blonde Ambition.
Yeah, but I'm not watching that movie. I'm watching this movie. I want that in this movie, the one I'm watching right now. I'm greedy.
I think that there is a really fascinating, maybe somebody has made this and I'm just not aware of it. I think a really fascinating documentary, or maybe even fictional story, would be sort of an upstairs, downstairs Gosford Park or Downton Abbey, about the little people, the common people, the guy who's like, rigging the sandbags and, the roadies, basically. Because Madonna, like, in this, she often does feel kind of like Marie Antoinette, kind of like, she always has an entourage. She always has people around her, fixing her hair, putting her into something, talking to her, like doing her adjustment. Like, there's always someone coming in with some job to do, and she just stands there and is, running the whole thing to an extent. And I would love to see, instead of following Madonna down the hall sometimes, I would love to follow that makeup woman who apparently, like, in the making of it, we get so few details about this, but it seems as though she was really seriously assaulted during the making of this documentary, and we get nothing. We get no information about that. And I would...
Well, and Madonna laughs when she finds out about it.
It's so strange. Yeah, it's so... it reminds me... Do you know the documentary The Queen? It's 1968. Yeah, so it's about the these early pageants that turned into the ballroom scene in New York. And, they just happened, thank God, to be there when Crystal LaBeija blows up at the other contestants. But it's so funny because the whole documentary has been looking the wrong way. It's been looking at all the white queens and ignoring the women of color, all these trans and queer, non-binary people of color. And the interesting person is right there. And I do think this documentary, I think that there is a wholly different doc to be made that looks in the other direction. That, Madonna's there and she comes in and out, but it's not about the making of her.
It could even be like, to me, it'd be like even more fascinating if Madonna never actually appeared. If the only time we see her is in the onstage sequences, and then everything else is about, the people like, oh, we got to get ready to like do her hair because she's going to be off stage in like, 5 seconds.
It's like the time code movie that had the four quadrants of the screen. Yeah. Let's do that. we have the Madonna shot, but then we have the three others that follow various similar people. It can be all the same time. We can be doing like straight run time of the show. That would be fascinating. I also think that maybe we need the Living in Oblivion version of Truth or Dare, which is this low budget documentary style about the making of with the fictional crew. Like something like that feels like what we're demanding now.
Here's the art project that I want, because nobody wants this and it would never make any money. But I want someone to take the footage from Truth or Dare. And then splice that into new stuff that is shot to look period. It's shot to look like it's 1990. That is all like it's completely fictional, but shoot all new footage of backstage and all the crew people doing their thing, intercut with the stuff that's happening on stage. And it's just a totally fictional mockumentary about the people who made that tour happen. I think that would be I think it would be a funny little gimmick, and I don't think it would make any money at all, and there's no actual economic reason to do that, but I think it would be an awful lot of fun.
Beauty's where you find it.
Well, I think that's a great place to end it. Thanks, Matt, for joining us. It's been a fun hour to talking to you. Normally, we would do a trivia right now, but you said you wanted to keep it short. So
oh yeah, unfortunately, I got to bounce back over to right now as we're recording. I'm finishing up my video about PBS and about Tales of the City and about the Republican efforts to defund PBS and use a gay love story as an excuse to basically turn Sesame Street into a vacant
Okay,
lot.
you're allowed. That's reasonable. We'll let you out of your trivia obligations.
for the memory of Armistead Maupin, we'll let you.
I no spoilers here. I think I would fare pretty poorly in a Madonna trivia conversation. So just be 10 minutes of me saying I don't know.
Well,
so, anyway,
the only question I had thought of, because I usually come up with them while I'm doing it, was like which famous musician produced Madonna's biggest flop?
Oh God, what famous musician produced Madonna's biggest flop? Off the top of my head, I want to say it's going to be something really unexpected, like Rod Stewart or something like that. Man or woman?
Man.
Okay, and somebody who is still working in the
dead.
I'm gonna guess very much dead. Ooh, I don't know. It wouldn't have been like David Bowie or Prince.
Level,
probably would not have
level, maybe even higher.
Really, Paul McCartney?
Same band.
Ringo Starr?
Same band.
Those are the only people. Stop naming the alive.
Oh, I'm sorry. Who are the other Beatles?
Harrison.
George Harrison. Okay, there we go.
He produced the Shanghai Surprise with her.
John Lennon from the grave.
Yeah.
Huh. Wow. Well, it's sad that didn't work out, because that seems like a collaboration. Look, now that you say that, I can see them having different philosophies, different musical philosophies. So,
well, it wasn't like I think they got along great. I think it was just a case of like, it was the big gimmick of it. The reason why they spent as much money as they did was because it was like Madonna and her husband making a movie together. So that was going to be a huge thing, but they decided it was going to be this period pastiche. And like Sean Penn is trying to do this sort of like comic wise guy in the 1930s. Madonna is playing a missionary, which is the exact opposite of what you should cast Madonna as. So
it's Irony Allen.
Yeah, it's a movie that doesn't work at all. So it makes sense that it was a flop.
Oh, that's a shame. Oh, but I love a big swing. I'm glad that they tried.
That's a good place to end it. Thanks, Matt.
Oh yeah, thanks so much for having me.
The family that stays together stays together.
Stand by. Going to air.
Stand by film.
5,
Stand by music.
4,
Stand by now.
3, 2, 1.
And speed up.
So this is Alan, over a month after we recorded this episode with Matt. As you just heard, a time crunch kept us from doing our usual trivia section. And it occurred to me before we recorded our Christmas episode that I could nab James and our Ernest Saves Christmas guest, Dan Delgado, to fill in this gap. Originally, I was going to give Dan some context for these questions, but then I realized it would be much funnier for him to try and figure out as we go along. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask you the last question first. Don't answer it, and just try and see if you can guess what the answer is as we go on. So the 10th question is, what movie is the focus of the episode these questions will appear in?
I just want to. This is like an upcoming one.
Yeah, no, this is
we recorded
episode that's going to follow this one, but we recorded it a month ago.
Oh,
and
okay.
We didn't get to do a trivia section, so this is the trivia section that is going to appear in that episode.
I see, but I'm not supposed to answer that.
Yeah. So
okay,
the first question.
Okay.
In his first memoir, which was ghostwritten by James Gunn, Troma Films co-founder Lloyd Kaufman lamented the fact that Madonna auditioned to be in their film The First Turn On, but was rejected by his co-director Michael Hertz. What famous dramatic actor and Marvel villain did get cast in that movie as a character named Lobotomy?
Alfred Molina.
James, do you have any idea?
No.
That was Vincent D'Onofrio. Before he did Full Metal Jacket, he was in The First Turn On, directed by Lloyd Kaufman and Michael Hertz. Question number 2. Madonna's big mainstream breakthrough came from the popularity of the music video for Like a Virgin, which was directed by Mary Lambert. Which of these 4 totally real movie titles is a film that was directed by Lambert? Mega Python versus Gatoroid, Sharktopus versus Whale Wolf, Dino Croc versus Super Gator, or Chupacabra versus the Alamo?
We're looking for the real one there.
The real one, which is no, all of those are real. All of those are real titles. Which is the one directed by Mary Lambert, who directed Like a Virgin?
I'm gonna say the first one, whatever the first one was. I've already forgotten it, but it was the one that I thought, oh, maybe that's it when I heard it. Even though Chupacabra versus the Alamo
first one was
sounds
Mega
phenomenal.
Python versus Gatoroid.
Yeah,
I
okay,
think that's it.
Yeah,
that is the one directed by Mary Lambert. Which of the following iconic New York City filmmakers has never cast Madonna in one of their films? Spike Lee, Woody Allen, Martin Scorsese, or Abel Ferrara?
Okay, so she's in a Woody Allen movie. She's in an Abel Ferrara movie. Is she in a Spike Lee movie? Or I'm sorry, my other choices are Scorsese and
Martin Scorsese or Spike Lee are the 2 other choices.
Is it strictly movies? Do we have to look? Is there other?
These are all feature films.
Uh-huh.
So
I can't think of the Scorsese one, but
I can't either. I'm going to that same place too. Even though maybe she's.
I can't think of a Spike Lee one.
No, exactly right. Exactly right.
You guys got a 50-50 shot. Take your shot.
I could take Scorsese. You could take Spike Lee if you like. You could do it that way.
Unless she was in New York Stories, because I haven't seen that.
She was not in New York Stories.
Well, that doesn't help me then. I don't know. I couldn't choose between the 2. I don't see Madonna in either of them.
Okay, she was in Dangerous Game, directed by Abel Ferrara. She was in Shadows and Fog, directed by Woody Allen. And she was in Girl 6, directed by Spike Lee. So she's never been in a Martin Scorsese movie.
I never saw Girl 6 either. But my instinct was right. My instinct was right.
Yep.
Question number 4. Despite only having one scene as a singer at a nightclub, Madonna is still the only actor on the Italian version of the poster for this 1985 amateur wrestling movie. It stars one of James' crushes, so he's going to look bad if he doesn't get it.
Uh-oh.
80s crushes in a wrestling movie.
Although she didn't really hit until the 90s, but this was one of her first films.
Mm.
In what year?
1985. How many amateur wrestling movies were made in the 80s?
I don't know if I can.
I felt like that was a pretty big hit.
Like only when I like All the Marbles is the only one that's popping in my head as any wrestling movie.
That's a professional wrestling movie.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say that. Yeah, I don't know.
The things you say, Linda Fiorentino popped out in 1985. That was like her.
Go with that.
Come on, James. You can do it. Come on.
I don't know of any amateur wrestling. Vision Quest is 85. Gotcha
excuse me, you just said it.
That's it right there. Vision Quest. Yes.
What is Matthew Modine training for in that entire movie?
Oh, yeah, okay. I was just, I don't think, when I think Vision Quest, I don't think wrestling movie. But
remember Vision Quest because it's Crazy for You is in it, and that was one of Madonna's hit singles. Okay, this is a question. This the only questions that we did manage to ask Matt is this one, and he didn't get it. So see if you can beat Matt, Dan.
Okay. Which
legendary British musician both executive produced and co-wrote the score of Shanghai Surprise, the mega flop period film in which Madonna co-starred as a sex worker posing as a missionary who teams up with a mercenary played by her then husband, Sean Penn?
George Harrison.
That is correct. We literally ended up telling Matt it was a Beatle, and he still guessed wrong.
Well, and it's a 1 in 4. I know. Yeah.
Number 6. The David Fincher directed music video for Express Yourself was the most expensive music video ever made when it was released in 1989, and is still the third most expensive made 35 years later. How much did it cost in 1989 dollars?
$1 million? $4 million? $40 million? $39 million?
It cost $5 million.
Oh, I was so close with that 4. Okay.
Number 7. One of Madonna's most controversial music videos was for her single Justify My Love, which was co-written by Ingrid Chavez, a singer-songwriter who remains best known for playing an angel in this infamous 1990 Vanity Project sequel written, directed, and starring one of the greatest musicians of all time.
Wait, what am I supposed to guess, the movie or the musician?
Yeah, the
oh,
movie.
Is it Graffiti Bridge?
It is Graffiti Bridge, yeah.
Yes.
In her entire career, Madonna has only guest starred in one episode of a TV sitcom. In what groundbreaking show did she appear in?
We Got It Made.
No. Think a bit more groundbreaking than We Got It Made.
Okay, all right.
I mean, we all love Terry Copley, but
Will and Grace.
Yes, that is correct. What actor turned director has a role in Madonna and Guy Ritchie's infamous flop remake of Lena Wertmüller's Swept Away?
Oh, I don't know. I have no idea. I have no idea.
Any idea, James?
Nope.
That is Elizabeth Banks. And now we reach the 10th question, which you have already heard. What movie is the focus of the episode these questions will appear in?
Desperately Seeking Susan?
Nope.
Who's That Girl?
Nope.
4 Rooms?
Nope.
For the record, I would love to do a 4 Rooms episode.
I've seen it, so we can't. You'll have to find someone who has it.
One of the movies that we've already mentioned in this trivia.
It has not been mentioned yet. Think less feature, think more documentary.
God, Truth or Dare.
That is correct, yeah. So thank you, Dan, for helping us finish this episode. And now we can go back to the Ernest Saves Christmas episode.
And suddenly he's very disappointed.
Our theme song was written and recorded by Preacher Boy. Hear more from the godfather of alt blues at preacherboy.com. If you have a confession you'd like to make on Cinema Shame, email us at cinemashame@gmail.com. That's all for today's episode.
You have chosen